to the California seas, from the summits of the Rockies to the mighty redwood trees. We're 1,000 wheels of freight train here, the diesel engine's power. We're the Union Pacific, doing 90 miles an hour. Bound from Omaha to Portland through Cheyenne and Laramie, we're heading west for Boise on the main line to the sea.
Alright, Night Train 220 here. Going to be going over the second part of my trip out west, and that is following the Union Pacific, the Salt Lake route, from the Los Angeles Basin up to Las Vegas. And I'm going to share some of my items. First I'm going to start with the Salt Lake route, the San Pedro, Los Angeles and Salt Lake Railroad passenger timetable. And this is from their 1915, I think it is. I have to look inside here. I think I would know this, but I'm almost sure it says 1915 on it. Yeah, it's this is kind of my pride possessions. One of my kind of pride possessions as far as railroad stuff. Picked it up on eBay. Wasn't super cheap. Wasn't super expensive. I want to say I paid around $30 for it. This is the orange that you'll often see advertised, or not advertised, but posted. It runs oftentimes over $30. I picked it up at a show about a year ago for $15. It's neat, but I'm glad I paid $15 for it. As you can see, going through the pages and such, it's, you know, it's kind of a neat design. Diamond cut, I guess, is I believe is what they call this type of pamphlet and so forth. My earliest Union Pacific passenger timetable is from 1923. 1921, the Salt Lake route was essentially taken fully over by the Union Pacific. Harriman's group took it over from Clark. And from that point, it was part of the Union Pacific system, but you can see there the Los Angeles and Salt Lake route is listed, and that's done for many years. And I believe it was not until the 1980s that the Salt Lake, Los Angeles and Salt Lake actually dissolved into the Union Pacific on paper. 1930, 1932, and 1939. I got some from the early 30s when they were building Hoover Dam. And then my latest one is 1960. You can see for a lot of years, the early years, the timetables were pretty mundane, I'll call it. They did add a little extras by the late 30s into the 40s. By the 60s, it had a little bit of design to it. Coming back around, I'm going to go through these maps. This is an early map. You can see it has the Overland route. I'm not an expert at the Shield, but I want to say this would be probably pre-World War II. Here's a map that's very similar, but it doesn't have the Overland route on it, and that's probably post-World War II, I guess. This is early. This is a little bit later. Here's a little bit more color. I think they finally realized you had to put something in their advertisement or their brochures to make them a little more exciting than the infamous. I'll just show you. Look at those and look at the employee timetables. Traditionally, public timetables are much more graphic, grabbing and such. Here's a UP rate territory. It's kind of an interesting map. Shows the rates for different parts and the rate boards and so forth. Not really familiar with that aspect of railroading, but it kind of shows you some information on it. This is a map I got a long time ago as a kid, probably in the 70s, early 80s. I just recently picked this up along the way, an early guide. This is from the early 1920s, so it's kind of neat. Picked it up on a pretty good deal. I picked it up at a store that sells those type of things. Couple coasters. This is the Los Angeles Limited in Rainbow Canyon. Rainbow Canyon is up at Caliente area northeast of Las Vegas, give or take, I'm going to say 100 miles. This is a fold-out brochure for the Los Angeles and Salt Lake Union Pacific. It has different locations on it. I'm not going to open it up, but you can see it has the Hoover Dam. So this is late 1930s, at the mid to late 30s, the earliest, excuse me. You got Zion and Bryce Canyon brochures. You got a couple California, an early California brochure, again with the Overland route insignia and the UP shield. A little bit later, probably from the 40s or 50s. Vacations for the Union Pacific. I am going to do a different presentation on Las Vegas Union Pacific because I have a lot of items specific to that location. It's kind of one of my areas of interest. Here are your employee timetables. I have the earliest one I have is 1946 Los Angeles division, Las Vegas down to Los Angeles. I have a 1949 California division, which is essentially the same. Includes the South Central District, which is the California division from 49. During the war, and there's a video on it that I have on my webpage that they talk about putting in the CTC or Centralized Traffic Control on this route to really help the influx of traffic that happened during the World War II. California Division, 1962. Again, basically Los Angeles down to Las Vegas down to Los Angeles is the best way to say that. Here's one that is broken down the Utah Division, which is basically north of Las Vegas. And then they were combined by the 70s, and you had the South Central District, which was everything from the kind of the OSL up north by Salt Lake City all the way down to Los Angeles. And by the time you got into the 80s and 90s, you were going to system timetables that just don't have the same, the detail is there, but it's, you know, I like the older versions where each subdivision or division rather had their own timetable. A little bit easier to read, a little bit neater. 5 and 7, and I don't even know what their number on now or how it works anymore. You can get a little bit newer stuff online if you look, but you know the routes don't change that much over the years. Lastly, I'm going to go over a couple books here. This is the Los Angeles and Salt Lake route by John Signor. Very good book on this route, published during the 80s. And then there's the Union Pacific Salt Lake route, another good book, Mark Hempel. Both of them are good. This Los Angeles and Salt Lake book is kind of hard to find and a little expensive if you look for it. The Union Pacific Salt Lake route is a little more available and you can get pretty good deals on it. I'd say this is probably at least closer to 80, 100. This will run you probably around 30, although you can find deals if you really watch eBay and Amazon and stuff. Lastly, I'm going to go David Merrick's books from the early 60s on the western railroads of Nevada and California. Excellent books. He has quite an article about the Salt Lake route, plus like the Las Vegas and Tonopah and all the other railroads of the region. A lot of good detail. Another book that's kind of hard to find expensive. This is a reprint of it. I want to say I paid, you know, I honestly forgot how much I paid for this. I don't think it was horribly expensive, but if I said $50, that would probably be a good guess. Anyways, this is all, and here's 844. I have a special connection to that engine. I operated it out at in Las Vegas at the Southern Nevada Railroad Museum. The paint scheme is different. This is just an HO model version of it that I bought at a reasonable price that was a little dusty. All this UP stuff is, like I said, I'm going to go and show you all my Las Vegas UP stuff, which is a whole other little set of items. Thank you.